round penning, groundwork, whatever you want to call it, has been weaponized, which I see for a lot of horses where they've been basically driven nuts in the round pen, chased around and around and around, that you can take a horse near a round pen and start to watch them physically shake with fear, just being in close proximity, which already tells you their experience of what has been done in the past. You have to remember, groundwork is any sort of communication that you're doing with the horse. So you could do your entire groundwork out in the pasture. Like, groundwork does not have to be in a round pen. It doesn't have to be in a certain location. It doesn't have to be in a certain setting. The horse can be loose. The horse could be on the halter. It is any sort of communication that you are having with the horse from the ground. That is your groundwork. So as sessions progress, and again, I never work by the clock, but my groundwork will be less and less time. Like, there is no routine, there is no pattern, because I am not coming into doing a session with the horse where I'm working on the ground with a preconceived notion of we have to work on X, Y, and Z. Like, that sort of approach where someone just randomly shows up and just randomly starts working on something takes into no account what that horse's current mental, emotional, and physical state is on that day. And with every single session, we have to start the session with saying, okay, how do I engage that horse's mind? Are there any new triggers that I'm seeing today? What is the quality of the haltering? And I check in as I use physical pressure, if I'm using the lead rope, and making sure I have tools. So there's mental directability, physical directability. I can help that horse let go of physical tension. That's all like the warm up, the preface before I'm actually doing my groundwork. Because why would I just randomly start to work on, like, I hear it a lot where I see people, especially when they come into clinics, so they haven't worked with me in the past, and they'll come in and be like, oh, my horse is great on the ground. And they'll want to put the horse in the round pen. They'll go, okay, here's what I do. I stand totally still in the middle of the pen, and the horse will just automatically go around the rail, and they'll automatically do their 2 circles of walk, and their 2 circles of trot or jog, and their 2 circles of lope, and then they know how to move it or change directions in this way and blah, blah. And you're looking at this horse who's going through this mindless pattern. It has absolutely no value to the horse. In fact, it's shutting the horse's mind down, the routine, the pattern, and it gives the human no honest assessment. So there's nothing that you're learning when this horse is basically on autopilot because you've taught it this conditioned response. You're not assessing, is there quality, is there softness in movement, is there adaptability, is there thinking, is there searching? These are all the tools we want when we go to ride the horse. So why wouldn't we check in with that from the ground? Which is why for me, I never do the same thing twice in a row ever. Like, I'm always changing things up all the time. So in the video that I posted, I can't remember if it was today or yesterday, of this rescue horse, I have objects in the round pen on purpose. And I don't send her out to the rail, and I don't have her move, and we just happen to be in another space and the horse is loose. But I'm also looking at the feedback as far as the pressure of familiar things like a saddle pad, a saddle stand, a blanket, things down low by her feet. There's a big, like, tractor tire rubber cutout, a plastic apple, I think, and something else. I'm watching, how does this horse respond to spatial pressure? How does she respond to things sitting on her right side versus her left side? How does she respond to things behind her? Now, I'm not moving her around and I'm not directing her, but I'm watching, how does she navigate? Does she impose herself on something, maybe starting out of curiosity? And then when she's triggered into a fearful state, which happens, how does she cope? Can she think through it? Does she run over things? Is she aware of where her body's at? This all gives me information as far as what holes are in her education, what I need to address to educate her, to help her to be able to think through scenarios, certainly for when I'm sitting on her. I'm not going to wait till I'm sitting on her to go, well, let's just see what happens and hopefully we can keep it together. And one of the things that I find is there are many people who take in horses for training who have the physical ability to ride things out. If you want to see people who can really ride, go look at the auction. Ignore all the poor horses going through the auction, but watch these guys who get on a horse in a tiny space, and these horses split in half and buck and bolt and go around and do all this, and they just seem to like never lose their cool, and they can ride horse after horse after horse. Now, granted, they're not going anywhere, and it's not for the long term, but they can stay on and they're not coming off. A lot of these trainers that you see can stay on a horse. They can make it look like it's working okay. until you put the less experienced, less capable rider on that same horse, and it completely falls apart. And so the problem I find with a lot of these training programs that basically bully the horse through things, especially like thinking in terms of like obstacles, you know, these all these different obstacles, whether it's in the arena, but sort of simulating like if you were out in the mountains. And so you'll see these people who like specialize in this, and they'll ride these horses and they'll get them to go through the obstacles over and over and over again. And it seems like the horse is fine because the horse isn't looking scary and it seems like they're complying. And then you put the owner on the horse, and that horse completely freaks out over the same obstacle it just walked through 4 times with the trainer on it. Well, why would that horse respond so differently? Did it actually learn with the trainer, or was the trainer able to ride well enough to coerce and contain the horse to comply? And then when you put on that owner who didn't have that same skill set, you're seeing the horse's honest feedback as to what he was experiencing. So for me, when I'm putting obstacles in the way on the ground, let's say in the round pen, certainly with this little horse who couldn't think or search or try, it's because we want to start giving her the time to learn these skills, and time is huge. I don't mean hours and hours and hours. That's not what I'm talking about. I mean that in the moment where she sees something and she's unsure about it, and you see her ears split in either direction, and you see her head cocked sideways, and you see all 4 feet in 4 different directions, that is not the moment that I'm going to suddenly have an opinion and try and direct her around. I want her to be able to have the time where she's not so fearful of me critiquing her that she can stay mentally present and make a decision how she is going to navigate around something. Now, I know that may sound like, duh, the horse should know how to do this, but this brings me back to not only this horse, most of the horses I post, but certainly for those of you who follow for a long time, the 17-year-old stallion that came in this summer, Ringo, was the same exact thing, where the human basically took the horse out of the horse, meaning the horse has no skills. They don't know how to think. They don't know how to make good decisions. They can't lay down and sleep. They don't eat well. They can't find water. They can't socialize in a herd. They can't do anything. So when we come back to working with a horse like this, we can't come in with this bravado assumption, which a lot of people do. Oh, can't she see that's just sitting there? It's not going to hurt her. She's been saddled. She's been ridden. So what if it's a pad? Just make her blah, blah. That is the typical response you see in a lot of these horses and how they're treated, rather than recognizing, wow, she's having a moment, and it's really nice that she's not splitting in half and blowing up or bolting off, but she's actually standing here thinking through it, which is not a natural response to a prey animal. When they're unsure, they flee. They're supposed to run away. So for her to be able to stand and think through it, why might this be a tool that if I were sitting on her in the future when she's unsure about something, how could this work in my favor? Well, heck, when something unsure, that she's unsure about comes up, I'd really like it that my horse pauses and checks in with me, and then I can help direct how we're going to handle this. Then the horse, who every time they were unsure was reprimanded, and so they just start getting more and more anticipative, which means they start fleeing stronger and faster and sooner at the slightest concern, never mind when they're really concerned. So again, even though we're in this moment, we're always looking towards the future. What skill in the future would I want this horse to have? And how does this moment contribute to building that skill? And offering the horse time is a huge one. I know everybody is in a rush and exhausted and overwhelmed and working 3 jobs and running out of daylight and everything else going on in the world, but I cannot emphasize enough that we do not offer these horses enough time, and we have unreasonable expectations when we haven't allowed them to learn how to think, how to search, how to try. We just want response, response.